Rick Without the K James presents, in my opinion, podcast.
So we are going to take a somber minute for a second. Me and Drew normally like to talk about, make fun of anything and everything, but this topic you really can't make fun of, and it's very close and dear to Emily's heart. Within the last year, she had a sister commit suicide, and suicide is our topic. We'd like to turn this over to Emily, and you talk and tell us as much or as little about the situation that you'd like. And
well, guys, as he said, I did have a sister commit suicide last June. She was my best friend. We were a year and a half apart in age, and she was the best person to grow up with and the kindest soul you ever could meet. I regret not being there for her as much as I should have been, and that's one thing that I'm going to spread to you guys, that she always tried to spread to everybody. All you have to do is love the people that you are around, support them as much as you can, listen to them, really listen to them, because sometimes they are screaming for you. So listen and love and be there for the people that you love. My sister really was a really kind soul, and it's so sad that she's not going to be here. But you have to grow through what you go through. And I feel like the people that really meant a lot to her in her life, we've pulled from each other and pulled from the experience of losing her. And now we are growing, and now we are going to help a lot of other people, and now we're going to be better people because of it. The fact that we had to lose her to understand this is devastating. So don't let it happen to you. And love, and love, and love.
so me and Rick are, both have worked in mental health, and to me it's a really touchy subject. It's really harsh, but there's a lot of things that I think of when I hear suicide. The old saying about it's a permanent solution for a temporary problem. And I don't think those people realize how much they're loved or how much they're needed. I've heard people say, no one will miss me if I'm gone. But one of the things I want to ask you, looking back, and I know you're raw about it, and I hope I'm not poking too hard, but looking back, were there signs and symptoms and things that you think you missed? Because I always hear that from people. It's like, I wish I would have realized this before, or I wish I would have seen things. Because was she reaching out for help and no one noticed, or because it's really easy to look back and say, you know.
So my sister really struggled with addiction, and that was where I feel like I fell short as a sister. At a young age, I watched her do a lot of stuff, and I feel like because she was my older sister, I just learned from it, and I never really spoke up to her until recently, to where she was already addicted, to where she was already asking for help, but in the wrong ways.
Yeah.
So it is hard to look back, honestly, because I think about all the things that I could have done, maybe. And there were signs. It wasn't just signs. She had asked me, if I go, are you going to be okay? And that was the part that scared me the most, because my sister loved the people in her life, and she would never want to hurt them. So the fact that she was asking me, am I going to be okay if I need to go? I always told her, I would bring up our wedding days, or something I didn't even believe in. I wasn't going to get married, but one day she was. And I would bring up those futures, and she'd be like, you're right, I couldn't do that.
And that's one of the things I don't think they realize, because they're in pain at the time, is how much they're going to hurt everyone around them. Because they don't believe, I think when they're hurting, when they commit suicide, they almost believe that the world's not going to miss them, because they're in a depression or a funk or something, to where, you know, I had a friend one time tell me that when she committed suicide, she remembers she was driving over a bridge, and she said, my whole thought process was, if I pull off into this lake, will anyone even notice I'm gone? Well, if you're feeling like that, you're in a very deep hole. And I wish people that were in, because we're talking about people trying to notice symptoms. If I wish there was some way you could relate to a person that you are loved, you are needed, you are wanted, and there's gonna be a huge void in a lot of people's life. You are gonna leave if you leave us. And I don't think they feel that way.
Well, so one of the hard parts about suicide and mental illness, I'm gonna comment on your shirt now. We're talking about the movie The Joker. It brought a lot of stuff to light, I feel like, for people, because you don't ever expect to be the person with the person in your life, the most special person in your life, to have a mental illness. And in The Joker, you see his mental states, you see what he goes through, and you see it on an inward perspective, so you somewhat understand it. But imagine being those people in his life that don't get it at all. And when the Joker is writing in his journal, this part hit me so hard, because it was only a couple months after Ellen had gone. It was like a slap in the face. He said, the worst thing about having a mental illness is that people expect you to act as if you don't. And I would take my sister out in public, and she would struggle with these mental illnesses in front of me, and I would ask her to stop. I would expect her just to be able to stop and turn it off. The thing is, you can't turn it off when it comes to mental illness. And that's why so many people nowadays have drug issues, because they can't deal with those. And that's why my sister had drug issues, because those would help her. And that's what they thought, and that's what they would believe. That's what they do believe, what will help them is drugs. And that's why we have such a huge issue with homelessness nowadays, and the drug epidemic that is right here in meth desto.
Meth desto, it shocked me when I heard that the first time. You know what I loved about The Joker, the one thing that really just slapped me for some reason, was when the counselor looks at him and says, "Are you having any negative thoughts?" And he looks at her and says, "All I have is negative thoughts." And that just I don't know, there was something about the way he said that and did it. It was just like, wow. And because he tells her, "You haven't been listening to me. All I have is negative thoughts."
The hard part about systems are that nobody in a world where the healthcare system is failing you, nobody is getting paid enough to actually deal with real world problems like this. Because what are they going to do? Subscribe you to a better therapist? No, you can't afford that. Your country won't pay for it. So what are we going to do? Subscribe you meds that aren't going to help because you aren't going to take them? What are we going to do with you? We're going to give you different meds.
And you're
going to get addicted to those.
I work at a recovery place, and so a lot of people, they were talking today in a meeting about how sometimes people with a mental illness or a disease or depression or whatever, they're kind of looked at like, something's wrong with you. So that's why people have to try to hide their mental illness and have to try, because a lot of people, if you're upset or you're reaching out for help, sometimes rather than people noticing it, they'll detach from you because they're like, man, that person's acting weird, or that person's, instead of noticing, hey, they're reaching out for help. Because I don't think everybody knows. So I think education could help a lot. Educating maybe people at the young, middle school level about how to notice depression, how to notice that type of stuff. I think that would help, because you're really hard on yourself. I can tell about, like inside you probably think I could have did something about it, or I wish I could have did something about it. And the only thing I could say to you is, remember, you're a young lady yourself. You haven't had enough life experiences to where you've probably been around this. Like we've been through, years of working with mental health where we've seen a lot of this stuff. This might be your first time to ever see it. So how are you going to recognize it? So don't beat yourself up over that. I know it's your sister, so you're automatically going to go there. You're going to say, man, I should have saved her. I could have saved her. Why didn't I do this? Why didn't I do that? When all reality, you were never taught how to deal with this, and you know, it's not something that we're just born with. So
I feel like, commenting on that, I feel like it does come from a lot of where I grew up. My family, my father, I know he loves me. I know he loves me with all his heart. But is he my best friend? Does he check up on me every day? Does he want to know what I'm doing? Is he really making sure that I'm okay? No, but like he makes sure I'm okay, like financially, if I really need him. I haven't in a long time. He's always there, I know.
that's an old-fashioned father.
Exactly.
Work double shifts, weekends, whatever it took to take care of you, but he might not come up to you and hug you and tell you how much he loves you. His way of loving you was, I'll work 4 shifts in a row to pay for that car or whatever it is.
Exactly.
Yeah.
My mother's version of love is, fuck, my father fucking sucks, so I'll love you a little better and we'll call it even. So, she's a whatever person. We don't feel great about each other, but she's been a really good friend sometimes, and I do really appreciate that. But growing up, I was never meant to check on the ones I love.
So my question is, do you have anything else you want to say about suicide?
It is preventable sometimes, I believe, but sometimes people believe that they need to do what they gotta do, and you can't let that bring you down. But love and check up on the people that you love.
And Rick, your comments on suicide, then wrap up the show for us.
Well, maybe we'll talk about it just a bit more. I know I wanted to interject with my favorite aunt committed suicide a couple of years ago, and she just got to a point where she was dealing with her lupus, and she was just tired of life. And I get it. Some people get tired, and you don't want to struggle no more. And I always remember my aunt, and this is the only way that I can combat it, I think, with suicide or any mental health or any of that shit, is my aunt always told us growing up, love me while I'm here, because when I'm gone, I'm gone. Love me while I'm here. And I said I never understood what the fuck she meant, because the moment she passed away, the whole family had their own little ordeal going on and dealing with it. And I said, this is exactly what she meant, is now you guys want to show how much you miss her and you love her and you want to fucking, but you can't no more. When they're gone, they're gone. And I try to live my life like that. I have ASNF on my leg because the sun never forgets. That's the way I love my boys, and I will forever do that. So I think that's the only thing that you can do as a person, is love while you're here and let them know that they're important. Call your mama tonight, call your daddy, tell them how you're feeling. If you're not feeling that way, something's eating you up inside, reach out to somebody, because we're never promised tomorrow.
Yo, it's your boy Charlie Murphy, my main man, Rick James. That's the one you think, the comedian Rick James. Get up on him.